Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name's Katie Wismer. I'm an author. I write fantasy and romance. And boy, do I have a video for you today. It's gonna be a marathon of a video. We got energy drinks. We got snacks. Thanks for being patient with me because I know I started talking about making this video about 6 months ago. And then I thought about it some more and I decided I wanted to wait to as close to my publishing anniversary as possible. The date that I'm filming this is June 13th and my first novel came out June 16th, exactly 5 years ago. So this is gonna be kind of like a publishing snapshot. My entire career thus far, the past 5 years, I have a ton of things to show you. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I love a good pie chart. Stats, numbers, that's my thing. We have a lot of them. We have a lot of them to get through today. I've done tons of similar videos before where I've like wrapped up and done a lot of numbers and stuff. I'll link them down below. But if this is your first video of mine, this is probably a pretty good place to start. This will give you an overview of everything thus far. As you can see with my stack next to me, I have a few books out. I'm gonna try and get organized with this, but bear with me. I'll leave timestamps down below if you are sick of hearing me talk about one thing and you want to skip ahead. I won't be offended. So really brief rundown on me if you are brand new here. I say my publishing journey started in 2020 and that's what I consider to be the start, although it's a little bit not true. My first book, this little guy, actually came out in 2018. I was still a college student and this was purely a for fun project. It's called Somebody's Got a Poison. It's a collection of poetry. I published this completely for free. Didn't pay for anything. And at that point I was a college student and this was just like something I was doing for fun over the summer with no intention of publishing anything after that. Like my plan was not to go into self-publishing at that point. I don't market this book anymore. It's still out there. You could read it if you want to. Technically my first book. However, I think of the start of my career to be this book. The Anti-Virginity Pact is a young adult coming of age novel I published in June of 2020, about a year after I graduated college. And from here, my plan was I'm going to pursue self-publishing full-time. I want to make this my job. So I think it's the mindset shift that really differentiates the two to me. Anyway, we're talking about the last 5 years since I published this book, although I'll include numbers with this as well. So we'll start with the basics. How many books I published per year, because obviously I have a stack of 18 books here. I technically have 12 out. It's a little bit complicated. So here are all my books and when they were published. You can see in 2018 the first book that came out was The Sweetest Kind of Poison. My first like official year of publishing in 2020, I had 2 books come out, The Anti-Virginity Pact, and then that other one is my second poetry collection, Poems for the End of the World. 2021 was my write and grind year. If I were to pick out any year looking back on it, that is the one that like I can't remember anything about that year other than working and writing. We were peak pandemic, I had nothing else to do and I wrote a lot that year. So we had 3 come out, The Anti-Relationship Year, The Marionettes, and Wicked Souls. 2022 is the year that I moved here to Portland and things definitely slowed down as I was adjusting. I had 1 poetry collection, Breakable Things, come out, as well as the 3rd Marionettes book, Bloodless Ties. 2023 looks like it was like really busy. It was not. I was basically killing myself over writing 1 of those books, but the other 2 were like ready ahead of this year and I just happened to publish them this year, if that makes sense. So we had Broken Perfect Lies come out early in the year, Ruthless Ends came out at the end of the year. That is the book that nearly took me off of this earth. And then that last one at the end, Project C, is actually something I wrote back in like 2018 as well as The Sweetest Kind of Poison, 2018, 2019. And that is not a final product. It's really just a rough draft and you can rate it on my Patreon page. It's not like officially a published book, but it is out there if you wanted to read it. I just consider it like a Patreon bonus. And then in 2024, only 1 book, Tell Me It's Right. And then 2025 so far, only 1 book, Tell Me It's Wrong. I think this is significant to pay attention to because when I'll show you other graphs of like which years I was making the most money and whatnot, it rarely coincides with the years where I was publishing the most books. I think that's a common misconception with publishing, is that you need to be publishing a ton to be able to make a living. And for me, at least in my experience, that's not the case. It is a little bit more complicated than that. There is nuance to it. I think having a lot of books out there will benefit you, and the speed at which you do that can matter. But my point is there are people out there who are publishing 6 to 12 books a year every year, and I think people look at that with indie publishing and get overwhelmed and they're like, I could never do that. I could never make a full-time living because I can't do that. I could never do that, and I'm doing very well for myself even if I'm only publishing 1 to 2 books on average a year. So before we get into all of my charts and all of my numbers, I think I'm just gonna sit here and do a little walk down memory lane and talk about each of my books and anything notable from them. If you want to skip this part and just get into the numbers, I completely understand. I filmed these kind of parts of the videos for myself to look back on, so I understand if this isn't interesting to anybody else. But if you happen to be curious, I'll have some little fun facts and stuff about each of them. So book 1, Sweet's Kind of Poison. I have so many vivid memories of working on this collection. I started it my sophomore year of college. I remember using all of my print money during finals week. Instead of studying for finals, I printed off all the poems. I was sitting on the floor in my dorm room, like moving things around, trying to figure out the order of the poems. It didn't end up coming out until the summer before my senior year, and it was just on pause for a long time in there. So this project honestly spanned the majority of my college experience. The edition you get now, if you order it, is actually not the same as the first like 100 or so people who bought it, or maybe even more than that, maybe the first like 1,000 or so people who bought it. The old edition used to have more poems in it, and then I at some point went in and like re-edited it and took out probably like 50 poems. So if you were around in 2018 and you got the collection when it first came out, you have like a super special edition and you didn't even know it. That one doesn't exist anymore. I have also lost the file that I had, the original like Word doc file, so even I don't have that version anymore. You have something, you have a collector's item. I look back on my books, even the ones that are old, and I usually feel very proud of them still. There are only a few that I kind of like cringe at and I can't really bring myself to read. This is one of them. I'm sure there are some little hidden gems in here, but I am afraid to look. Like, I just would rather not know. However, despite the fact that I am aware that it is cringy now, I have nothing but warm feelings towards this book. A lot of people have sent me really heartfelt messages about this book and like relating to it, and this just like being a really meaningful experience to them. So there are like a couple of decent ones in here. Anything else that I can say? All of my you could tell I was learning how to like actually go through the publishing process with these books, because all of my poetry books, somehow, I don't know how I made this mistake, are different sizes. All three of them a different size. And this is the only book of mine that has white paper instead of cream paper. Something happened with the formatting and a couple of the copies ended up without page numbers. I think if you order it now, it does have page numbers. Like, hot mess of a book. But of all of my publishing experiences, from what I can remember, this was the most positive reception I've ever gotten from a book. And I don't know if it's just because at the time I was just a YouTuber, I was just a booktuber, so pretty much everyone who's picking up this book was my audience. I wasn't marketing it otherwise. So I don't know if people were just being nice to me because they were my followers, or because it's like obviously like personal and poetry, people drew a line and like weren't gonna be mean and negative about it. Although people don't do that anymore. So overall, this experience was just really positive. This book was really well received. I don't remember getting like any negative reviews or anything that whole like first year. Like, it was such a pleasant experience. I think that's why I got a little bit of whiplash with the next book. So overall, I look back at this really fondly. This next one, I'll keep it brief because I have an entire video about it that just went out like a month ago. The Anti-Virginity Pact 2020. Whew. Unfortunately, this one was a little bit overshadowed by all of the negativity around this release. Yeah, all in all, I look back at this and I'm really proud of myself for having just taken the leap with self-publishing. I learned a lot from this book and from this process. And even if this book didn't turn out to be what I wanted it to be, it definitely didn't go the way I wanted it to. It set me up for the career that I have had, and I have absolutely no complaints about that. This is the second cover. This used to have a different cover. And the little dog in here is based on the dog that I had at the time, my little soulmate dog Bentley, who is no longer with us. So honestly, this book I look at very fondly because I feel like it kind of like immortalized my dog in it too. It's gonna make me really sad. We're moving on. Next up, we had another poetry collection, Poems for the End of the World, and this was such a vastly different experience in every way. I still love this one. I look back, this is unlike the other poetry collection. I can flip to almost any page in here and I still really like the poem. There are a couple in here that I would take out now if I were to do it again. But no, I still feel very proud of this one, hands down. I think the thing I associate the most with this one was it getting nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award, which is really cool. I haven't had that experience with any of my other books because the Goodreads Choice Awards have changed since then to like purposefully exclude indie books, basically. So I'm glad I managed to have that experience before that happened. That just makes me think of my community and how grateful I am to have you guys, because you guys are the ones who made that happen and got in there and voted. And now that will forever be immortalized as well, because if you go on the Amazon page, it says it was a award nominee. If you go on the Goodreads page, it says it was a nominee. So it's got a cute little badge next to it now. That came with like good and bad things because of that. That brought in a ton of new people to this collection. That definitely exposed me to what it was like to end up somewhere you might not necessarily belong with an audience that you're not familiar with. Next, we have the Anti-Relationship Year. This actually to date is one of my favorite books. It's one of my bestsellers, as we'll get into, and I'm still really proud of this one. It was one of my favorite experiences creatively. Something that's really fulfilling to me and something that I like to do with a lot of my books is treat each like an experiment, both on the writing side and then also on the marketing side. So I like to take risks, I like to take chances with my books and just try new things. And for this one, I tried writing in third person for the first time. All my other books are in first person. And I wrote in 2 timelines. We have a then and now narrative structure, and we're following our main character, her freshman and senior year of college. And not only do you get the 2 timelines that alternate every chapter, I was also just like so intentional about which chapters I put next to each other because I wanted them to always mirror each other. So there was a reason for every single choice that I made in this book. This book also just like cracked open my career for me. It just completely opened my mind to what was possible. This is the first book of mine that ever went viral. This is the only book of mine that has ever made it into the Kindle top 100, which even at the time I like didn't fully appreciate because I didn't realize how hard that was to do and how like big that was. It was the first book of mine to ever go viral. Yeah, so this book just really opened my mind to what was possible for me. Like I hit a new level of success with this book that like I couldn't even wrap my head around at the time. Overall, so grateful for this book. Love the characters in this book, and I think it's overhated. I will be its #1 defender till the day that I die. It is a little bit short. It could have been longer, but that's the only thing that I would change about it, to be honest. Then we come to the book that legitimately changed my life. The Marionettes, which came out just a few months after the anti-relationship year. I was pumping them out really fast that year. I vividly remember the night that I came up with the idea for this book. I was back in my old condo in Denver, and I literally just paced laps around my condo for probably a good 2-3 hours as I planned out this entire series. And I was just recording on my dictation app, and I was just talking aloud to myself as I was brainstorming for like 2 or 3 hours. This is the first and biggest example for me of books that have just like taken on a life of their own. A lot of my books sell well because I'm the one talking about them, I'm the one posting about them, I'm the one advertising them constantly. This is the one that really just like took off. Obviously I did that for this as well, and I tried to market it myself, but this one just gained so much momentum from other people talking about it, and that word of mouth just, it was like, it caught on like fire. And seeing people hype up a book of mine of their own volition, not because I sent them a free copy, not because I'm paying them, they literally just read the book and loved it and then went on their accounts and screamed from the rooftops about how much they loved it. Obviously that helped me a ton with sales. It helped move my career forward, but also just like on a personal satisfaction level, seeing someone enjoy my work that much was, I mean, that's like the dream, right? That's all you ever want as a writer. My other books, like it was just a completely different feeling. Like I felt like I had people who liked the books, people who liked me. This was the first experience where I felt like I had genuine fans of the book. You know, people who were making fan art of the characters, who had theories, who were just like adding their voices to the conversation and like really engaging with it in more of a way than just being like, yeah, I liked it, you know? It's just the level of enthusiasm I hadn't experienced until I got to this book. I wrote this book back in 2020, so it's been 5 years. So I definitely look back and I know I could do it better now. There are things that I would change, but overall, I really can't complain. This is the series that has set me up completely. Like my career would not be the same without it. I would not be sitting here talking to you probably without it. I don't think I would be a full-time author without it. This series changed my life. Then we come to Wicked Souls, which came out in December of that year. This was my first time trying to write a sequel. The Anti-Relationship Year is kind of a sequel, but they were standalones. This was my first time trying to continue with a plot, and also knowing that there was going to be a third and a fourth. So balancing writing a series, this was my first experience, and it was fucking scary. I had no idea what I was doing. It's one of those things where I genuinely don't think you can figure out how to do it. You can't learn you learn by doing. Like you can read all of the craft books and hear all the advice from everybody as you want, but nothing is going to teach you how to do it other than doing it. And this is actually to date one of my favorite books of mine. Craft wise, I think it's one of my best books. I think it is tightly plotted, and if you look at like my average rating of all of my books, it might be my highest rated books. I think it is the highest rated book that I have. People just tend to really like this one, which I'm so thankful for, because I was so nervous going in. Publishing a sequel for the first time, I had no idea what to expect. And overall, I think this is a favorite of my readers. It has one of my favorite scenes as far as like spicy scenes go. I think still to this day, I've written all of these other books that have those kind of scenes. The first one I ever tried to write is in this book, and I think it's one of my best. I'm also just such a sucker for a slow burn romance, and the payoff in this book, when I'm reading it, I feel like a fan. Like I don't even feel like I'm the one who wrote it. It like makes me kick my feet. Like I love the payoff of the slow burn romance in this series. Not to toot my own horn, but I think I did it well. Writing this, and then also the other sequels though, taught me so much about writing a sequel and just the series in general. And I feel so much better prepared to go into my next series. So I'm grateful for that. There are things I look back on obviously and I would change, but honestly not as many as you might think. After that came Breakable Things, my next poetry collection. Honestly, I don't feel much emotional connection to this book, which is strange. It's my least read book. It kind of feels like a secret between me and the few people who have read it. The true fans have read it. I actually think some of my best poems are in this one. This experience just really made me realize I'm done with poetry. I don't want to publish it anymore for a lot of different reasons. I've talked about it in the past. And I really feel like I might have rushed to get this one out because I felt like I needed to publish something in between Wicked Souls and Bloodless Ties because there was going to be a year gap between them and I had never gone that long without publishing something. So I do feel like I kind of felt the need to push something out. Not that it wasn't ready, but it is the shortest of my poetry collections. And yeah, so I guess when I look at it, I wonder if I would have published it at all if I hadn't felt that pressure to keep up publishing quickly. But it definitely has some of my favorite poems I've ever written in it. Next came Bloodless Ties. This book, what to even say? I'm very grateful for the experience that I had with this because it was a new experience. I had never experienced anything like this, and I feel like it has better prepared me for moving into the future should I run into this situation again. I was absolutely baffled, blindsided by the reception of this book. I have never gone into a book release feeling more confident and then felt like I ran face first into a concrete wall. Like the reaction to this book, I was not at all prepared for. It was not at all what I was expecting. I went in expecting people to love this book. Maybe I was feeling a little high from the reception of Wicked Souls and I just thought people were gonna like this one just as much. And this is making it sound like everybody hated this book. That's not true. But this is my most polarizing book to date. People either love it or they hate it, and they were not shy about letting me know how much they hated the choices that I made. And now looking back on it 2 years later, I feel like I'm a lot more objective and I can, you know, take a step back and ask myself if there's anything that I would do differently, and I stand by it all. So I feel like this book really just taught me to stick to my guns and prioritize my vision for a book, and if other people don't vibe with it and don't like it, that's valid too, but it doesn't mean I needed to change the book that I wanted to write to please other people. This is my favorite book in this series. I think it's everyone else's, not everyone else's. I'd say probably about half of my readership's least favorite. It's my favorite, and that's just so funny to me how that can happen. I loved writing Cam. I loved writing Valerie's arc. This book is so vivid to me. This book turned out to be exactly the vision that I had in my head for it, and that's my goal when I'm writing a book, is to fulfill a vision that I have of it, not necessarily to make it super mainstream or likable. This is the toughest experience that I've had with publishing a book so far. Is that true? Maybe it's just like, I'm thinking about my first book. I'm thinking about the Anti-Virginity Pact and how much hate I got. That one was harder on me because I hadn't experienced it yet. So I'm grateful I had that experience before this one. It prepared me a little bit. This one just hit me harder. I don't know if necessarily harder. This one just hit me differently because I really wasn't expecting it. With the first book, I was a little bit expecting some pushback because I knew it was controversial. So it's up there. It's one of the toughest experiences that I've had so far in publishing. But honestly, you guys know that meme where it's like 1,000 people facing you and it's one person facing them and like, you're all wrong. That is me with this book. I stand by it. Next comes Broken Perfect Lies. This is a standalone and it is more of just romance, but it does have that like romantic suspense little twist to it, but I wouldn't say it's quite a romantic suspense. It's just a romance with suspense elements. This book was a fever dream. Honestly, half the time feels like I'm not even the one who wrote it, which is funny because it's not like this came out really quickly. This was a long drawn out process over 2 years. I started writing it in 2021, wrote a rough draft, let it sit for over a year, then went back to it. So maybe that's why it feels kind of disconnected to me. However, every time I flip through it, I end up sitting there reading for like an hour. I get sucked into it because I enjoy it so much. This book was really interesting. This is the furthest I've ever deviated from my own experiences in life, my own personality, people I know in my life. Like nothing in my books is ever based on me or anyone I know or any specific things that I've gone through, but they're influenced, right? This character, like nothing like me, her life nothing like mine, her friends nothing like mine. So this was just like me trying to get as far out of my own experiences as possible, which was an interesting exercise to do. This was also the first book I ever wrote from two POVs, with the female and the male love interest point of view, and I was really nervous doing that for the first time with this book. Like I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull it off. And funny, now every single romance that I write, I do both POVs. So I'm glad I gave it a try because I ended up liking it and now I always do it. Also, the only book of mine that has a multimedia format, so there are journal entries, song lyrics, all that kind of stuff in here, which was fun. Because I knew I didn't want to publish another poetry collection after Breakable Things, I had still been writing poetry, so I just decided to incorporate my poetry into this book as if Parker was the one writing it, which was fun. This is not a super hot seller for me, and it's also not one I've heard a ton of feedback on from readers, so it's sold like well enough. We'll get to the numbers in a second. I really don't know what people think of this other than just like I see the reviews and the average rating. People are in my comments, in my inboxes and stuff telling me their opinions about everything else, but this one has just been kind of quiet. Whenever someone tells me this is like their favorite book of mine or they really loved it, I'm always really surprised to hear people even mention it. It's gotten a lot more successful recently. I've started marketing it more since like November, and it's doing well since then. So it's been like a slow book for me. It just was kind of quiet for the first 2 years and then it started to pick up. But yeah, I'm saying this about all my books. I look back on this really fondly. I say that and then we get to Ruthless Lens. I don't know if I look back on this one fondly. This is the hardest book I've ever written, ever. I hope it's the hardest book I ever will write. I hope I never experience something like this again. That doesn't mean I'm not proud of the end product, but man, was it hard getting there. Genuinely, this book made me question quitting writing. Like, it made me wonder if I even wanted to write anymore. Do I even like writing? This book almost killed my career in the sense that it made me almost want to not do it anymore. Honestly, I'm just glad to be done with it. I'm really proud of myself for pushing through and finishing it and getting it to a place where I am happy with it. Just to be perfectly honest, I do think it's the weakest installment in the series, maybe tied with book 1 just for completely different reasons, which is funny because I know a lot of people will tell you book 1 is their favorite. I think going into this was more of a mental battle though. After seeing the reception of book 3, I think I was just feeling really beaten down and struggling to write a book that was hard. It was just, I had never finished a series before. It was hard to write the last book, but then also like mentally in the back of my mind, I'm like, why am I trying so hard if they're just gonna hate it like they hated book 3, you know? So like, why am I pouring so much of myself into this book knowing what's to come, or people are just gonna hate on it some more? Because the things that people didn't like about book 3 we're going to continue into this book because those are choices that I made in the plot. So like, if they didn't like book 3, they weren't going to like this. Like, I knew the same people were going to be unhappy with the choices that I was making because they just didn't like the direction the series ended up going. So I just was battling a tough mental battle with this one. Surprised myself with a few things with this book and the way that it ended up going in a good way. Like, I was really proud of myself for the way that I figured some things out. And I actually sat down to reread some of this the other day because I was doing some research for Cam's book. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised. I think I had convinced myself that because other people didn't like it, that it was a bad book. And then I sat there reading like a good 150 pages. And I was like, wow, this is actually really good. Like, I genuinely really still like this. So unfortunately, I look at this book and I just like immediately am transported back to how hard it was to write it. But when I sit down to actually read it, I'm pleasantly surprised. It's better than I remember it being. Not that I thought it was bad. You know what I'm saying? Then we come my newest additions to the family. We have Tell Me It's Right, which has 2 covers. I'm gonna hold up the People cover because it doesn't get enough love. Everyone prefers this one. Not everyone. Most people prefer this one. I prefer this one, so I'm gonna make you look at it. I love this book. This book just like, I immediately feel like giddy when I think about this book. This is like that, you know, your like comfort nostalgic rom-coms. That's the feeling I feel with this one. This was a risk for me to take this leap and try something new. This is a small town romance, which is not something that I have been writing. And coming out of so much success with my like dark, bloody, violent vampire books, I knew the majority of my readership was not gonna jump to a cutesy beach town, small town romance. So I kind of felt like I was starting over. 12 books in, 11 books in. New genre for me, but it's not my bestseller. So the one moral of the story, the one lesson I've learned in my life is the leaps of faith always pay off. I'm so excited for the rest of the series. I love this cast of characters. I've been having so much fun writing these books, which is interesting because small town romance isn't even something that I had been reading until like kind of recently, until I was writing these books. So I don't really know what possessed me to move into this genre. It just kind of happened. I'm definitely learning I will never escape the women's fiction accusations, which admittedly is frustrating for me. I hate the term women's fiction. I hate that that's even a category because men's fiction just gets to be fiction. But I see that in reviews, a lot of people saying like this leans more towards women's fiction than romance, which irritates me. It's because my romance books, like the romance is the main plot, but I also want my main character to have a life outside of the romance. I want her to have goals. I want her to still prioritize herself. And people read that and they're like, oh, it's not just a romance because she's not just a caricature who has no personality outside of her love interest. Sorry, it's a soapbox for me a little bit. It irritates me. I just, it's interesting to see, because most of my readers are women, it's interesting to see how many of them seem to hate female empowerment themes. It's not just something I've experienced with this book, it's something I've experienced with all of my contemporaries. Anyway, takeaway, might be a marketing tweak I need to do. Maybe I just need to freaking lean into the women's fiction label. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being stubborn, but I hate it on principle. We'll see what we do moving forward. Now tell me it's wrong. It has just come out recently, just came out in April. It's June. It's been quiet so far. I'm still figuring out how to market this one effectively. It's not full of really popular tropes right now. They're a little more niche, which again, I'm gonna try not to get on my soapbox. Irritates me. It all comes back to like this flavor of misogyny and the patriarchy, okay? It's impossible not to notice that people prefer age gaps with the guy being older, and that people love single dad romances but not single mom romances. And it's impossible not to just sit here and stew and just like hate on the patriarchy a little bit for shaping those preferences. Anyway, my hope is that I will find its audience somehow, some way. I'll figure it out eventually. This, to me, feels like one of my best books, so it being my lowest seller so far among my novels, again, it's brand new. I just hope I'm able to find its audience. I feel like it's such a sweet story. It's the spiciest of my contemporaries for sure. That came out of nowhere. That wasn't the plan. These characters were just like a little freaky. Similar with Broken Perfect Lies, where I said I like deviated outside of my own experience a ton. This one so much. Like, the main character is older than me. She had a really traumatic upbringing, ended up marrying a guy twice her age for money, has basically no discernible life skills. She's a single mom. The main guy in here is like so good with kids. He loves kids. Like, it's just very far out of my own experience. But I had a really good time with it, and they're honestly one of my favorite couples that I've written. That's that one. Then the remainders down here, we just have bonus content for the marionettes, omnibus for the marionettes, special editions for the marionettes. We'll talk more about all of those later, because I think I've been talking for a really long time and this was only supposed to be the little intro to the video. Now let's get into the numbers. Where should we start? Those are my top sellers, I guess. I think this is pretty predictable. Obviously, Marionettes book 1 is my top seller. Sold about 30,000 copies so far. This is also a loss lead for me, so I tend to give this book away for free a lot. I've given away at least 10,000 copies of this for free. That's not included in this count. Coming in second is the second book in the series, Wicked Souls. Coming in third is The Anti-Relationship Year at about 16k. And then we have book 3 in the Marionette series at number 4, The List Ties, at 15k. And then I did include 2 more because these are basically tied for 5th. We have Tell Me It's Right. She sold a little bit more at this point. I think it's like 10.1k. Maybe 10.2, and then Ruthless Ends is at like 10 or 10.1k, so they're like almost exactly the same. The reason why I say Tell Me It's Right is my bestseller, even though obviously it's in 5th place, is because it's been out for less than a year and it's already sold over 10,000 copies. I don't know if any of my other books have ever done that. Like the Marionettes has sold so much, but it's been out since 2021. It's had 4 years to collect those sales. Tell Me It's Right has just been moving at a different pace. Like, it's just been selling so much so fast that I don't think any of my other books have done. Unsurprisingly, with which book has sold the most, the book of mine that has the most traction on Goodreads is The Marionettes. You can see over 32,000 people have added it to their to-read shelves. Almost 7,000 people have read it and rated it already. 1.5k are currently reading it. Obviously not everybody uses Goodreads, so this number doesn't give us the full scope, but we work with what we've got. I can only gauge interest so many ways, so this is just one way that kind of lets me know how many people have this on their radar. Talk about follower counts. This isn't about books, but again, this is something I want to be able to look back on and compare. So currently, after about 5 years of doing this, although I've had some of these counts longer than that because I was a booktuber before I started publishing. My Instagram's at about 17,000 followers. My YouTube's at about 33,000. TikTok 36. Threads 3,000. My Patreon has over 400 members, and people can follow you directly on Amazon, so they're like notified when you publish new books. Over 3,000 people over there, which I didn't realize until I went to check for this. I've made this chart so you can see kind of where my book sales are based on which book. You can see that tallest one is obviously The Marionettes. I've done them in the order that I published them, so you can get an idea of, like, just because something's been out for a really long time doesn't necessarily mean it's sold the most. Just because something's been published recently doesn't mean it's sold the most. It's pretty all over the place. This is my chart for book sales over the year. We're obviously only halfway through 2025, but you can see bar for 2025 is already past what 2022 and 2023 were looking like. So, and we're more than halfway through what I got for 2024. So I am hopeful to continue to see some growth this year. Check back in with me in 6 months when we do the end of the year wrap up. A common question I always get is on format. So you can see 65.5% of my book sales have come from Kindle Unlimited. 13% has come from people just purchasing the ebook by itself. Audio is about 7%. Paperbacks about 12%. And then that one that doesn't even have a label because it's so small is hardcovers, but that's about 2%, which is not surprising to me because I only have hardcovers of the Marionettes books. So that's only 4 out of 12 of my books. So obviously that number is just going to be a little bit smaller. I also made a chart based on country. Obviously I'm very US heavy at about 79%. I haven't dipped into translations at all yet. So basically everything else is big enough to make it onto this graph for English speaking countries. The UK at 9%, Canada 4.4, Australia 3.3, Germany 2.6. And then that pink one is just everything else lumped together. I would love to see this change over time. I would love to get into translations. I have looked into doing it myself, but I really determined I don't want to have to make translations on my own. Not only are they going to be super expensive, but I also just worry about being able to produce something of like high quality if I don't speak the language myself, and being able to be confident that the translation is done well. So we'll get into this actually in another section. Maybe I'll just do it now. I was going to talk about things that have fallen through in the last 5 years because I don't ever see people talk about this. You see people talk about all of the things that have gone well for them. And in my 5 years of publishing so far, so many things have come into my vicinity that I thought was going to work out and it just didn't end up happening. And there have been a lot of false starts for me. So just for a little bit of transparency, that happens sometimes. I've had so many things come up that I was so excited about. And if you are a follower of my channel, you may have heard me say here and there in the vlogs like, oh, I have something so exciting in the works, but I can't talk about it yet. And then I never mentioned it again. It's because it just didn't end up working out. I've had like book subscription boxes that I thought I was going to be in, like not just we exchanged 1 or 2 emails, like we got far into discussions, like it really seemed like it was a done deal and then it just didn't work out. I've been in talks with foreign publishers about translations. That's where this is coming from. I've been in talks with literary agents. Like I have had so many opportunities come up that I really thought was going to work out. And then at the last second, they just fell through. My point in including this section is that just might be a little more common than you think. At least it has been for me. I've never heard anyone else talk about it. My point being, would love to get into translations. Foreign publishing companies hit me up. I've had at least 5 translation deals come in that I thought was going to work out and then it just didn't end up happening. So if I'm going to dip into translations, that is the way I would like to do it. Maybe one day we'll actually get to the finish line with one of those. If you're wondering how my sales look based on genre, because I am a genre flip-flopper, in comparison I've had about 75,000 sales for my fantasy books, which is really just the Marionette series, and then for contemporary about 34,000. And in comparison, the Marionettes books are 4 books and then I have 5 contemporary books out. I realized I didn't include special editions in any of my book sale count. Like I include it in my income because I get a licensing fee, but I didn't include the actual book sales, but so give or take a little bit with those. And then as far as all of my books, for my novels, I've had about 109,000 sales and my poetry makes up about 3,000. So you can see maybe why I don't spend so much time trying to market the poetry. And then we have a few more numbers, then we'll get into the income stuff. So in the past 5 years, I have done 2 book signings. I did one in Orlando, Florida in 2024, went to Romantasy Book Con. That was a really big one, over 1,000 attendees and everything. And then just recently I did Romance in the Pacific Northwest, which had just over 100 attendees. So such a fraction of the size. I'm actually planning for Patreon this month to make a video talking about how that second signing went for me. A little bit of a spoiler, I actually sold more at the small one than I did at the bigger one. So lots to get into in that video. I do have a 3rd one planned for this year. I'll be at Book Harvest in Chicago in October. And the thing about these book signings is you have to plan so far in advance. You have to apply to be in them like over a year before they're gonna happen. And planning that far in advance can be hard for me. Like my brain does not like to do that. So I'm still figuring out just how many I want to do in a year because it does take a lot out of you, especially if you're traveling. They can be really costly if you're traveling, and planning that much is a little bit overwhelming for me. So I'm still trying to figure out the balance that I want in my schedule. How many do I want to go to? I do enjoy doing them. It's hard for me to balance like writing the next thing when I'm like constantly moving around. So we'll see how this looks moving forward, how many more I'll start attending. The local one was nice because it was close by. I didn't have to worry about travel expenses, shipping things back if it didn't sell. So I might start doing more things locally because that was a little more manageable and it ended up being more profitable. I've been in 3 book subscription boxes so far. I thought it was 4. And then I was looking through all of my emails, like desperately trying to figure out what one of them had been, and it may have happened. I might have not hallucinated. I don't know. I can't remember. So the anti-relationship year has definitely been in 2. And then the marionettes has been in 1. And with that one for the marionettes, the first 2 for the anti-relationship year, it was literally just the book as it is. I signed it and sent them to the box. They were just included as is. For the marionettes set, they made completely new special editions and ended up licensing from me. That's what these are. They did the first 2 books in the series and they're planning on completing the series this year. I ended up selling the audio rights for 4 books this year to Podium, which was one of my goals for this year, so I'm pretty stoked about that. We should actually be getting the first audiobook of the Sweet Spire books next month, so I'm really excited about that. In the past, I've produced all my own audiobooks. That's why it says 6 audiobooks produced. Those are the ones that I made. I made 1 limited edition puzzle. This one seems so random. This was a part of my Kickstarter back in 2023. I had my cover artist for the Marionette series create this new piece of art and I had jigsaw puzzles made. And this is one of my favorite things that I've done to date. It's so niche. It's so me. I love jigsaw puzzles. It's so random. And I have lots left over because they have not sold the way that I would have hoped. They're on my website if you want one. I love them. I think it's such a cool thing that I did. It was a big investment, to be honest, but just like personally, fulfillment wise, it was really fun. I really enjoyed doing it and it was unique. I would bring them to my events and everyone who came up to me was like, you have a puzzle? Because it's just something that nobody else has. I have had 3 pieces of character art made myself. It should have been 4. One of my artists ghosted me, which is unfortunate because I have an almost complete piece of art from her. She just needed to do like the final version, but I feel like I can't share it because we never finished it, but I have it and I just want other people to see it. But this was years ago. I've never heard from her since. And then below that in parentheses says 8 pieces of character art because with the special editions that Luna and Laura did, they created a ton of character art. And so that's 8 additional pieces of character art for the marionettes if you haven't seen them. They have 1 on a bookmark, they have 1 on the print, and then there are 4 pieces or 3 pieces within each book. There's the 1 on the front cover. If you haven't seen these editions, they also have sprayed edges, patterned end papers. There's also another design under the dust jacket that also has foiling on it. And then they have these overlays within the book with pieces of art, and there's 2 per book. So lots of character art if you're into that kind of thing. I did 1 Kickstarter, as we talked about, back in 2023. That was such a huge undertaking and it was fun, but I'm a little bit scared to do it again because it was such a massive event. It was really successful. It ended up raising like $30,000, but the fulfillment of that kicked my ass and I ran into so many manufacturing problems that it just dragged on. It took me like 5 months to end up fulfilling it when I was planning on it taking me a month, and I ended up making a lot of things by hand. I was spray painting the edges of the books by hand. It was a lot. I've gotten 1 Best of Book Talk flag on Amazon for the marionettes. This is something that I just was like so excited to get. It just felt so full circle. Marketing the books on Book Talk is what let the marionettes take off, and I went back to check on the Amazon page on its book birthday because I was trying to double check which day it had been published, and that was the day that I noticed that it had the flag, so it just felt so full circle. Had 1 Goodreads Choice Award nomination for Poems for the End of the World, as we talked about. Again, that's never happened again, so that's just something that was fun to experience. I hit the Amazon top 100 with the anti-relationship year, and I technically have 18 books if we're including special editions, alternate covers, and then the Patreon exclusive book. I always say I have 12 books out. It's kind of technically 18. That's crazy. No, including Project Z on Patreon, it's 19. 19 books. All right, let's get into some income numbers, shall we? I took these screenshots a day ago. Obviously, these change constantly. So this is what it was as of the morning of June 12th. I also added in the book covers into the chart so you can kind of see which books were published when and how that relates to the growth of my income. So here we go. You can see this is just for KDP. I'll get into complete numbers later, but this is KDP makes you the graphs, so just for a nice visual. In the last 5 years on KDP alone, I've made about $214,000, and you can see where those book covers are, how that relates with Sweet Skin and Poison way out in front. Very congested around 2021 with all of those books coming out pretty quickly, and you can see just how inconsistent it is and how it wavers, and there are busier times of year, and that's just par for the course. It happens every single year. You can see those peaks and dips every single year without fail, but obviously things have just grown over time as I have figured out how to market, and also just as I've had more books out. That read through that you get to your backlist once you hook someone new with a new book is invaluable. Looking at Kindle Unlimited page reads, the thing is I've also not always been a KU author. I was wide for the first year of my career. So as you can see with this chart, I was getting no page reads for that whole first several years because I wasn't in Kindle Unlimited. When I went into Kindle Unlimited was when I published The Marionettes, but still my other books were not in KU. I didn't move them into KU until later. You can see I've had about 34 million page reads so far, and things have, again, fluctuate quite a bit, but obviously have grown a lot within the last year or two. Now I want to talk a little bit about book income in total from all places. Those charts were just from Amazon, KDP. I also get money from Income Spark, Audible. I do direct sales through myself, so I do TikTok shop, and then I also sell on my website. I got advances from Podium for my audio deals. I have Drafted Digital, like all of these other places. And I have made comparisons so you can see what it looks like from year to year, because I think that's very illuminating. This is my average monthly income just from the books. You can see way back in 2020, I was making on average about $300 a month from my books, which is crazy how much things have changed. In 2021, I started making a little over $1,000 a month from the books. In 2022, that is when I started really marketing my books. That's when I started to figure out TikTok and everything. So you can see that's when I thought I had experienced a lot of growth. Then I was making about $3,500 a month. 2022 to 2023 were pretty much identical. I didn't see a lot of growth. I just kind of kept things. I maintained where I was at. So I was making about $37,000 a month from the books. 2024 saw a nice little jump to $5,600, and then this year I'm averaging over $13,000 a month from the books. So things have changed drastically. If you want totals, in 2020 I made less than $4,000 from my books all year. I did start publishing in June, so that is really only for half of the year. In 2021, about $13,000. In 2022, about $42K. In 2023, about $69K. 2024, $67K. And this year I'm projecting about $153K. I've basically just taken what I've made so far in the first half of the year, averaged it out, and then multiplied that average by 12 to get that projection. Something of note with book income though is there is a huge delay in when you get paid. 3 months from Amazon, which is where I make the most money. So that's why that 2024 number looks a little bit small, because I made the most money that year in November and December, and I didn't get paid those until this year. So if we're talking about like how much I make in a calendar year, I think in 2024 it was like 80 or 85K. This is what I got paid that year, and there's a 3-month delay. So from 2020 to 2025, my book income has increased over 4,000%. Can you imagine any other job where you got a raise of 4,000%? I am so grateful for my job. I love my job. That is crazy. I usually only share all of these income numbers over on Patreon. I don't know why I felt like we'll just do it here. I probably should have given you a warning at the beginning, because I know not everyone wants to see this. I will warn you now, I am an open book to a fault. I don't give a fuck. So totals wise, not just books. In 2020, I was making about $42,000 a year. And what's crazy is, if you have followed me since then, I was working so hard in 2020. I had so many jobs just trying to get this business off the ground. I was waking up at 4 in the morning and working until 8 o'clock at night, and then I would do it all over again. I was teaching English to kids online in China. I was nannying. I was doing freelance editing services for other authors. I was working on my books. I was doing YouTube. I was doing Patreon, and then I would teach more classes at night. I really had to change my mindset of like, working harder means making more money, because I was working so much harder in 2020 than I am now. But I am so grateful to that version of myself for working her ass off, because she really set me up for where I'm at now. Moving into 2021, got to about 49K, 2022 about 86K, 2023 about 100K, 2024 about 221. And this year, again, I'm projecting about 184. 2024 was an outlier because I also sold a piece of real estate that year. So take that year with a grain of salt. Obviously, we'll not be having a repeat of that this year, which is why we'll see a little bit of a dip. But even like being that close to maintaining that level of income without being able to sell a piece of real estate, like I'm baffled by that, to be honest. So the total increase with all of the income numbers from 2020 to 2025 have had about a 337% increase. If you want a chart, because you know I love my visuals, I love my charts of how that book's average monthly income has changed over the years, there's that for you. Oh, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about, because I have gotten questions when I've talked about Kindle Unlimited before. So KU offers these all-star bonuses, and I have gotten many of them, but I think when people hear that, they expect it to be bigger than it is. So at least in my experience, they've always been pretty small. I know that they give bigger ones to the bigger authors, but here's what I've gotten so far. You usually usually get an email from them to let you know if you've gotten it around the 15th of the month, and I'm filming this on the 13th, so I am expecting to get one this month. Obviously that's not included in this tally though. So you can see back in 2022 is when I got my first one. I ended up getting 3. That's why that number is in parentheses off to the side. And in total, those 3 ended up being $1,762. In 2023, I also got 3 bonuses, but only $300 worth. So for one thing, the program has changed. So they give out more bonuses. So you have more people have an opportunity to get them, but they do offer, like, I've gotten bonuses as low as like $30 before. So it depends. It's on a monthly basis. It's for books that are in Kindle Unlimited, and it's also by country. So I've gotten months where I got a bonus in the US and Canada and the UK and India. I've gotten bonuses where half of the bonus was for the marionettes and half of it was for Tell Me It's Right. So it's by performance, by book, by country per month, if that makes sense. In 2024, I had 7 bonuses, which ended up being about $1,234. This is what's really interesting though, is it's not predictable, because it's not just you and your performance that matters. How are all of the other authors in the program doing too? Because in 2023 and 2024, I sold pretty much the exact same, but you can see I got way more bonuses in 2024. So in 2023, I feel like it's just because other authors were doing better than me. Like, I was still selling just as well, but other authors were selling better, and that's why I wasn't getting the bonuses, even though I was making the same amount. It's tough. Sometimes you really are expecting to get a bonus because you got the same number of page reads that month, but if other authors did better, you just might not get something at all. So it's not very predictable. In 2025 so far this year, I've gotten 4 for $1,311. So getting an extra $1,000 or so a year, it's nice. It's not life-changing for me. I know authors who sell a lot better than me. I don't know how much they pay out anymore as like the max ones, but they're at least like tens of thousands of dollars for sure. Those were all of my charts. So yeah, the first 5 years of my career have been, is there a word for it? I don't know. I am really happy with everything. I'm really grateful for all of the experiences that I've had, good and bad. I feel like I've grown so much as a person, as a writer, as a business person. Like, I'm a completely different person than I was back in 2020. And I hope a takeaway from this for you, if you are someone who wants to pursue this, or you're an author who's currently working on this, I hope that you can see this and see how quickly and how significantly things can change if you're not where you want to be. I am planning on making a video. I have all of the notes. I have my whole script written out. If I were to start from scratch today as a newbie author publishing my debut book, what would I do? What's my advice from someone who is just completely new and starting out? So I haven't decided if that's going to go over on Patreon, but that video is coming. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll have all of my links down below in the description, more than you could ever want. In total, I don't think I put these on there. You may have done the math yourself. I've sold about 110,000 books, and I made about $300,000 off of them since I started. Most of both of those numbers being in the last 2 years, partially because I've vastly improved with my marketing, but I also just think it's a momentum thing, and building that backlist is planting the seeds and you will reap the rewards later. So those first couple of years where I wasn't like making that much money, honestly, were just as important. They were building up that backlist, which allowed me to take off later. So if you're at a place right now where you're not happy and you're just feeling like you're putting in the work and you're pushing out the books and the success isn't coming, it might be just about to bloom. I had to spend a couple of years of like really just planting the seeds and trusting it was going to pay off without seeing the rewards just yet. Sometimes it just takes time. My camera is dying. Great time to end it off. See you guys in the next video very soon. Bye.
Babe, why can't you see? No hope in what's left of me. I had to tell you before I fall asleep. Sitting there on the edge, babe, not knowing which way to lean.